Lyra had never felt so lost. The space station she had landed on was enormous, metallic, and alive with the constant hum of machinery. The corridors were bright, polished, and smelled faintly of recycled air. Everything was foreign, from the sharp angles of the walls to the way humans moved with such quiet efficiency. She had traveled across stars, left her home planet behind, and now found herself assigned to a human roommate, Alex. The thought had seemed simple enough to the station administrators. One room, one bed, two species. How difficult could it be? Lyra, from the planet Ilyara, had been raised in a culture where physical closeness was more than affection. It was survival, communication, and trust. A hug could soothe panic, a hand held could calm fear, and sleeping near someone was the ultimate sign of respect and connection. She had imagined Alex would understand or at least accept this part of her nature. She had not expected resistance. When Lyra first entered the quarters, she found Alex already there. He was sitting on the single bed, leaning against the wall, reading a thin digital tablet. He glanced up, his expression polite but reserved. His posture screamed distance, and the small space between them seemed to multiply as soon as their eyes met. "Hello," Lyra said softly, her voice musical, carrying the tones of Ilyara. "I am Lyra. I will be your roommate." Alex nodded, his fingers still flipping through the tablet. "Alex," he replied. "Welcome. This is a small room. I hope it's acceptable." Lyra's eyes wandered over the single bed, the small storage lockers, and the tiny table that held a lamp. Her heart sank. There was no extra bed, no separate area, nothing that could accommodate her instincts for closeness. "I sleep next to you?" she asked tentatively, stepping closer. Alex looked up sharply, blinking. "No, one bed. That's the rule. And we don't, cuddle." He sounded uncomfortable even saying the word, as if it were foreign in his mouth. Lyra's stomach twisted. She had expected challenges, yes, but not this cold barrier. She could see that Alex was polite, but his politeness was like an invisible wall she could not penetrate. On Ilyara, this would be a minor misunderstanding. Here it felt like a chasm. Days passed. Lyra tried to adapt, but every instinct she had pulled her toward Alex. She sat closer than necessary at mealtimes, adjusted the temperature of the room to what she thought he might like, even brought small gifts, bright stones from her homeworld that hummed faintly. Alex accepted them with nods and quiet thanks, but never smiled, never initiated contact, never crossed his boundary. Lyra's frustration grew. She had always believed that kindness was universal, that caring could be expressed through touch, presence, and warmth. Yet here, in this small human room, she felt her gestures slipping into a void. One evening, as Lyra tried to make the room more comfortable with a small bioluminescent plant, a loud alarm echoed through the station. The lights flickered and gravity shifted momentarily, throwing both of them to the floor. Lyra's heart raced. She had trained for emergencies on Ilyara, but this station's systems were strange, unpredictable. Alex rolled over quickly, grabbing a handle on the wall and pushing himself upright. His eyes, usually calm, were wide with concern. "Gravity anomaly!" he shouted. "We need to stabilize the room or the entire floor could be affected." Lyra didn't hesitate. Her limbs reacted instinctively, her alien physiology giving her balance even in the shifting gravity. She moved to the control panel, her fingers brushing the touchpad with precision. "I can help," she called. "I know how to stabilize the flow." Alex looked at her in surprise. He had assumed her species might be more ornamental than useful in emergencies. Yet here she was, analyzing data, adjusting settings, and preventing what could have been a dangerous fall of heavy equipment. By the time the gravity normalized, both were breathing heavily, adrenaline still pumping. Alex looked at her differently now, a spark of respect in his eyes. "You handled that well," he said, his voice quieter than before. "I didn't expect that." Lyra's chest lifted slightly. Respect was not love, but it was a start. Maybe she thought humans had ways of showing care that didn't involve touch. Maybe there was a path here after all. The next days were a mixture of awkwardness and curiosity. Lyra still wanted closeness, still struggled with her desire to reach out, but she also began observing Alex more carefully. She noticed the small ways he cared, how he adjusted the room's temperature when she shivered, how he ensured the supplies were ready for emergencies, how he left messages for her when he was away. It was subtle, quiet, almost invisible, but it was there. One night, a strange phenomenon appeared outside the station. A meteor shower, not dangerous, but beautiful. Lyra moved to the window, mesmerized by the streaks of light. Alex joined her silently, standing a small distance away. "It's beautiful," Lyra whispered. "Back home, the sky would do this every month, but never like this." "Never so bright," Alex nodded. "It is." His tone was neutral, but his gaze lingered on her. He didn't move closer, but somehow his presence beside her felt supportive. Lyra felt her heart calm slightly, yet tension remained. That night, when she hesitated to sleep in the single bed, Alex said firmly, "I sleep here. You can take the floor." His words were gentle but firm, and Lyra felt a pang of loneliness. She curled up on a small mat, feeling the distance physically, but thinking about the shared experience of the meteor shower. Perhaps care could exist without touch. Perhaps she could adapt. Days turned into a week, and a minor crisis on the station forced them to work together again. A minor fire broke out in the storage area near the living quarters. Lyra and Alex were first to arrive, and the station's automated systems failed to fully contain the blaze. "Step back," Alex shouted, grabbing a fire suppression tool. "I've got this." "No, you need help," Lyra countered. She leapt into action, her alien reflexes allowing her to move quickly and safely through the smoke-filled room. She used her bioluminescent energy to light the area, guiding Alex and helping extinguish the remaining flames. After the fire was out, they stood outside the storage room, both panting, covered in soot. Alex finally gave a small, honest smile. "You're surprisingly effective in a crisis." Lyra's heart fluttered. She realized something important. Humans had ways of showing respect and admiration that did not require physical closeness. Perhaps she had misjudged Alex. Perhaps her struggle was not against him, but against her own assumptions about how trust and love must be expressed. That night, as she lay on her mat, Lyra thought about the day's events. She thought about the small smiles, the quiet gestures, the shared adrenaline, and she began to see a pattern. Humans might not cuddle, might not show love as she knew it, but they had patience, reliability, and protection, their way of expressing care. Even though the longing for closeness still burned inside her, Lyra felt a small seed of hope. She could survive here. She could adapt. Perhaps one day she would understand this human completely, and maybe he would understand her too. The week ended, and Lyra approached Alex cautiously. "Tomorrow I will try to respect your rules," she said softly. Alex looked up from his tablet, slightly surprised. "Thank you," he said simply. "I appreciate that." For the first time since her arrival, Lyra felt a sense of belonging. She still wanted closeness, still felt the pull of her instincts, but she had found a new path: cooperation, respect, and quiet trust. The struggle was far from over, but she knew she was not alone, and in the quiet, glowing hum of the space station, Lyra realized that sometimes survival and connection were not about love or cuddling. They were about understanding, adapting, and finding respect in the small, invisible ways that bound beings together across worlds. The space station was quieter than usual. Most humans were either working in distant sectors or resting after long shifts. Lyra and Alex remained in their shared quarters, the tension from the past days easing into a strange rhythm of mutual respect. Lyra had learned to restrain her instincts, to step back when Alex needed space. Alex had begun to notice her presence in ways he could not fully explain, feeling reassured by her efficiency and focus. It started with small moments. Lyra would notice the coffee mug Alex used most often and refill it without asking, placing it on the table beside him. Alex would notice and nod quietly, a small acknowledgement that said more than words could. Then she began leaving small notes, reminders for tasks, observations about the station, even gentle advice on how to avoid fatigue during long shifts. Alex, who usually ignored such gestures, began reading them and responding with brief messages of thanks. It was a silent conversation, a dance of communication neither had experienced before. One morning, the station received a distress signal from an uncharted planet. Sensors detected a weak energy signature, possibly from a crashed vessel. The mission required 2 capable crew members to investigate immediately. The commander assigned Alex and Lyra, citing their complementary skills. Alex would handle technical operations, and Lyra's alien physiology and instincts would provide unique advantages on an unknown surface. Lyra felt a surge of excitement and fear. This was the first time she would leave the controlled environment of the station with Alex by her side. She prepared her gear carefully, checking her sensors, energy modules, and survival tools. Alex approached, scanning the mission brief on his tablet. "We need to move efficiently," Alex said, voice precise, almost cold, but with an edge of trust. "We can't afford mistakes," Lyra nodded. "I understand," she replied. "I will follow your lead." The shuttle descended onto the planet, its surface rough and uneven. Jagged rock formations rose from the ground, and the sky glowed with a faint, swirling aurora. The atmosphere was breathable but carried a faint scent of metal and ozone. Every step was a careful negotiation between alien instincts and human caution. They encountered their first obstacle quickly, a deep crevice that blocked their path. Lyra's long legs and flexible joints allowed her to leap across easily. Alex hesitated, calculating angles and testing the ground. Lyra extended a small device that projected a temporary bridge of energy. "Step carefully," she instructed, and Alex followed, trusting her judgment. This was the first of many moments where Alex realized her presence was more than helpful. It was essential. Each challenge they faced required coordination, understanding, and adaptation. The more they worked together, the more Alex began to appreciate the value of her instincts, and the more Lyra learned to trust his calm logic. After several hours, they located the source of the distress signal. A small craft partially buried under rocks, its systems failing. Inside, they found a lone alien occupant, unconscious but alive. Lyra immediately assessed the being, her hands glowing faintly as she stabilized its vital signs. Alex worked on the craft's controls, rerouting power to sustain life support. "Good work," Alex said quietly, watching her. "I didn't expect you to handle that so quickly." Lyra gave a small smile. "Your trust helps," she replied softly. "I feel more capable with you." Alex felt a warmth in his chest, a feeling he could not name. He had spent years surrounded by humans who rarely relied on him in life or death situations. Here he felt needed, and not just for technical skill. Lyra's presence, her intelligence, her adaptability. It mattered to him in a way he could not fully understand. The return journey to the shuttle was tense. The planet's surface was unstable, and minor tremors shook the ground. Lyra's agility allowed her to navigate falling rocks, while Alex's careful planning ensured they avoided traps and pitfalls. Each saved the other in small ways, the kind of mutual dependence that forged a bond without words or touch. By the time they reached the shuttle, they were both exhausted. Lyra leaned against the console, catching her breath, while Alex ran diagnostics on the rescued alien's condition. Silence stretched between them, comfortable and unforced. Back on the station, the rescued alien was transferred to medical care. The commander praised Alex and Lyra for their efficiency and bravery. Lyra felt a quiet pride but also relief. The mission had been dangerous, and yet they had survived together. Alex looked at her, the first faint trace of a smile appearing on his face. "You did well," he said simply. "I trust your judgment more now." Lyra nodded, a flicker of hope lighting her eyes. "And I trust yours," she replied, "even if it is different from mine." Over the next week, their routine continued with subtle changes. Lyra still longed for physical closeness, for the kind of comforting touch she had known on Ilyara, but she learned to channel her instincts differently. She offered guidance, shared knowledge, and acted with attentiveness. Alex responded in kind, protecting her, respecting her insights, and silently acknowledging her efforts. They began to understand each other's forms of care, different but equally valid. One evening, Lyra approached Alex as he worked on a maintenance task in their quarters. "I want to try something," she said softly, her voice tinged with nervous anticipation. Alex glanced up. "What is it?" She handed him a small device, a memory recorder containing her observations of human and alien interactions. "I recorded patterns of behavior," she explained. "How humans care without touching, how we can respect each other and still connect." Alex studied the device, curious. "You studied me?" Lyra nodded. "I want to understand. Not just your species, but you." Alex felt a strange sense of honor. Someone had taken the time to understand him so deeply. He placed the device on the table and smiled faintly. "Then we both learn," he said. Days later, the station faced another challenge. A power surge threatened to disable critical systems, and only coordinated action could prevent disaster. Lyra and Alex worked side by side, their movements synchronized. Lyra's alien reflexes compensated for sudden system failures, while Alex's methodical planning ensured every step was precise. When the crisis ended, the commander called them for debriefing. "Your teamwork was exemplary," the commander said. "I have never seen two individuals, especially from different species, coordinate so effectively." Alex and Lyra exchanged a brief glance. No words were needed. Their trust, their understanding, and their silent bond spoke louder than any praise. That night, as Lyra lay on her mat and Alex on the bed, she reflected on how much had changed. She no longer felt like an outsider entirely. She still missed closeness, but she understood that connection could exist in many forms. Respect, trust, shared experience, and protection, all were ways to show care and love without physical touch. Alex, for his part, felt a subtle shift in his feelings. He had always valued efficiency and logic, but now he realized that understanding another being's needs, adapting to them, and relying on them in critical moments was also a form of connection. He may never understand Lyra's instinctual desire for touch, but he appreciated her presence, her courage, and her loyalty. One morning, as they prepared for another routine mission, Lyra approached him quietly. "I think I understand now," she said. "Love and trust are not only shown by touch, they can exist quietly in patience and care." Alex looked at her and nodded. "I think you're right," he said. "We do trust each other. That's what matters." Lyra smiled faintly, a warmth spreading in her chest. It was not the closeness she had longed for, but it was a beginning, a start of a bond that could grow in its own way, shaped by two species learning to respect and understand each other. In the hum of the space station, the shared quarters no longer felt so small or lonely. Lyra and Alex had found a connection that transcended their differences, proving that friendship, trust, and respect could flourish even without cuddling, without traditional forms of love, and across the vast distance of worlds. The alien girl's struggle had not ended, but it had transformed. She no longer saw Alex as cold or distant. Instead, she saw a partner, an ally, someone whose care was quiet but unwavering. And in that realization, Lyra found hope, patience, and a new way to belong in a world so different from her own.